A colourful cultural show kicked off the 16th ASEAN Leaders Summit in Hanoi. But as the leaders took the stage for the ceremonial show of unity, there was a notable absentee, with Thailand's Prime Minister forced to skip the summit due to serious unrest at home. It was a rare blot on an otherwise mostly upbeat event, at which the 10 members looked to build on the progress they've been making toward becoming an integrated regional community by 2015. Vietnam's Prime Minister told the audience that it was now key that ASEAN find ways to harmoniously combine national interests with broader common regional interests to build on their unity in diversity. He said history has shown ASEAN's vitality and adaptability in the face of challenges. The region showed plenty of resilience too during the recent economic crisis. ASEAN countries weathered the economic downturn much better than might have been expected, given that most of their economies are still heavily dependent on exports to the West. Some countries didn't even slip into recession, and Vietnam and Indonesia in particular continued to post very solid economic growth in 2009. Growth across ASEAN averaged an enviable 1.5% last year, and is expected to come in close to 5.5% in 2010. General Electric's Southeast Asia division, with diverse interests, including in the infrastructure, aircraft engine and power businesses, says it had a surprisingly solid 2009, with plenty of reason to be optimistic about the year ahead.
The oil and gas business has remained very strong for us. Healthcare also was very strong last year and particularly strong going into this year, driven somewhat by the stimulus spending that some of the governments in ASEAN implemented in order to try to keep their economies going, despite the very short term. Again, that's come back very strongly so far this year.
Under the ASEAN Free Trade Area, or AFTA agreement, duties on intra-regional trade in most goods have been eliminated or slashed to near zero. ASEAN has also struck free trade deals with the big East Asian economies of China, Japan and South Korea, the so-called ASEAN +3.
The East Asia integration is our long-term goal, and a lot of countries believe that this is a natural thing to happen. And of course, if you look in terms of where the engines of growth are going to come from globally, it's going to be ASEAN and ASEAN +3.
What we have seen last year when the global economy slump was that the exports to China, particularly from Malaysia as well as other countries in ASEAN, has actually risen by more than 100%. So that has helped to offset some of the decline in exports to the US.
But closer integration with giant economies like China's brings undoubted challenges as well as rewards.
As you enter into more and more free trade agreements, you're exposing yourself. So for us to take to get the most benefit from all this free trade agreement is for us to ensure that we strengthen our competitive strength that we have, and ensure that our firms can exploit the bigger market and not being able to not perish in the environment that's going to be more and more competitive.
To try to boost competitiveness and attract more foreign investment, Malaysia's government, for one, is preparing to enact a raft of economic reforms. It's a welcome move.
I see China as kind of both a good customer, but also a very strong competitor to ASEAN. And I think it's critical for ASEAN to be successful. They need to continue to liberalize and reform their economies, like what we're seeing in Malaysia, for example, and continue to move up the added value scale.
The community the leaders hope to forge by 2015 will be based on three main principles: economic integration, socio-cultural integration, plus a secure and politically stable community.
There's a lot that we have to do in the next 5 years. And from an Indonesian perspective, we feel that the economic community pillar is going forward quite well. We are 75% on target right now. But we need to strengthen the other two pillars, and they need to move in parallel. So we can't have it imbalance. And second, we must ensure that ASEAN remains in the central position in terms of building the East Asia regional architecture.
The resilience this region of more than 550 million people showed in the face of the crisis has underlined just how important a role ASEAN can play globally. But the leaders who gathered in Hanoi know that to ensure strong, sustained growth, they need to live up to the slogan of this year's summit and continue to transform their vision for ASEAN into action.